Welcome to Truth Wanted. We search for proof of gods, ghosts, aliens, and any other questionable claims, but we haven't found any yet. So, do you have the evidence we've been looking for? Well, call us because the show is starting right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan. This is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. So if you'd like to call us, you can do that. The number is 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. Truth Wanted is, of course, a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And of course, every single week, I always try to have a special guest. This week is no different. It is the wonderful, amazing Dr. Daryl Ray. Dr. Daryl Ray, welcome back to Truth Wanted.
Thanks for having me back. It's been a while.
It's been a while. I was trying to figure out before the show, and neither of us could remember how long it's been, but we're pretty sure it's been at least 3 or maybe 4 years at this point.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been a while. Great to have you back. How have you been?
I've been busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest.
Is that an original? Is that a Dr. Daryl Ray original? I've never heard that before. That's pretty awesome.
Actually, I got it from my brother many years ago.
Okay,
but that's how busy I've been.
That's a brother Dr. Daryl Ray original. I'll take it. Well, Dr. Daryl Ray, you are, of course, the co-founder, one of the founders. You're the founder. You're the founder.
The founder. Yeah,
the founder.
I didn't have any help. I wish I did, but
that was all you. You started. You are the founder of an organization called Recovering from Religion. You are also an author, and you're also a public speaker, and you do a lot of things, don't you?
Yep. Sometimes I can't remember all the things I do, but yeah.
We want to talk more about your life and what you've been up to recently. But before we do that, Dr. Ray, we are doing a segment that it's called our question of the week. We want the truth. Okay, so every single week we're asking you guys, the audience, a question, and we're taking your top 3 answers from the comment section. So we're going to read the top 3 from last week, because last week we asked you, what do aliens shame each other for? And I'm so glad we have you on for this, Dr. Ray, because it's like you're just the perfect person to do this with. So number 3 comes from Chuck Gatos, who says aliens are shamed for having their faces appear on coffee mugs in the Roswell Tourism Center gift shop, which is really good.
I like that one.
I like that one too. That's really funny. Yeah, that's like it's like if you lose a bet and like with your alien friends, it's like, okay, you got to drive by Earth and get your picture taken for the gift shop, right? That's awesome. Number 2 comes from J Crew 1200, who says, what do aliens shame each other over? Crash landings. Yeah, you got to admit, right? Like that's probably not intentional. Yeah, so it's like, guys, come on. You got one job.
Yeah, you had one job, and you had the most advanced technology on the universe, and you still can't land the damn thing.
And you get caught by medieval peasants or whatever. I don't know whenever time frame it happens, but anyway, that's really funny. Our number 1 comment though goes to Brian Hamblin, who says aliens shame each other over never having probed a human before. Which I mean, listen, we all have to take our time with things, right? We all go at different paces. Not everybody's comfortable with probing. Some of us,
do you think that's like a rite of passage for an alien? You're not a true alien until you probe some human's orifices.
I don't know. I don't know how it works in alien world, but yeah, I would imagine. I guess that's one of them. That's one of the rites of passage. So anyway, these are really funny answers, guys. Thanks so much for giving your comments for that. And I'm going to tell you this week's next prompt. So the next prompt is joke answers only. The worst part about skepticism is blank. Okay. The worst part about skepticism is blank. So please comment below, and you might get your comment read out for next week. But before I move on, Daryl Ray, what do you think the worst part about skepticism is?
Watching novice skeptics' brains fall out.
Yeah, watching them all fall out because they're too open-minded, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they don't know the rules of skepticism, I guess you could say, or critical thinking, actually.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's a good one. So let's see if you guys can top Dr. Daryl Ray's answer there, because that was pretty good. So Dr. Ray, again, we've had you on before, but it's been a long time, so I'd love to refresh the audience as to who you are and what you've been doing. As I mentioned before, you're the founder of an organization called Recovering from Religion, and I was wondering, maybe we could start there. I know you had some other stuff you wanted to talk about, but let's talk about that organization first, because that's one that if you've watched the show for a while, we talk about them a lot. We reference people to them a lot, and you're a big part of that. So yeah, please tell us.
Yeah, well, we just celebrated our 14th anniversary last month.
Yeah, congratulations.
April. 14 years we've been doing this, and we have 440. I just looked a few minutes ago. We have 441 trained agents that take calls, take chats, run live groups, real face-to-face groups in coffee shops, and run our virtual groups, or run our RFRX, which you spoke on just last Monday.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that's a great show. Every Monday night we're bringing content that it's just a talk. It's an expert or somebody who has a good story or something. Anyway, it's a good thing, and we appreciated you supporting us by being one of our speakers. But we've been working for years on developing our awareness, the awareness of our services, and all of our services are free. So if you're a person out there that's going through the journey of leaving organized religion, leaving a cult, whatever, and you're struggling, or you're being shunned by your family, or you're being told by your boss that, you need to get your faith to keep your job or something like that, you can call us, and we've got tons of resources, and we've got great trained agents that won't judge you, and they'll just be here to listen and help you with your own journey, because our goal is to meet you in your journey and help you find your own way. We don't advise people. We don't tell you what you should and shouldn't do. But we have thousands and thousands of calls and chats every year. I don't even know how many we have. It's in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. And you were telling me before the show a stat, which I don't know how, if this is just based off the top of your head or how reflective this is from real numbers, but you were saying about 30 to 40% of the calls you receive were referrals from ACA programs.
Yeah, I'd put my monthly paycheck, which I don't get, or they haven't paid it to me this month anyway. I'd put a lot down to say that we're getting 30% of all our chats and calls come through some reference of one of the programs. You guys putting our name out there and advising people to call us.
That's the first time I heard anything about that, which is amazing to hear. I'm really glad, because as you know, Dr. Ray, I am not a trained professional in anything, really. I'm just a dude on the internet. And so you guys have a bunch of people who are trained to talk to people. I think it's great. So if you need like real advice, real help for your situations, obviously I'll banter with you, but I do recommend that you check out Recovering from Religion, because it's a great org. But you also do a bunch of other stuff, right?
Yeah, we also do the Secular Therapy Project.
Right.
Literally this month is its 12th year. We're 12 years old, and we have 744 vetted therapists. These are licensed psychotherapists in 9 countries around the world, and those people are here. You can contact a therapist through our system and get a therapist that won't send you back to church or pray with you or tell you your chakras need realigned, or your depression because you're an atheist, or that kind of bullshit. That happens. I was just literally reading a chat today, a woman chatting in with us saying, I'm going to this I'm going to this counselor. And about halfway through the chat, I find out by reading the chat that it's a religious counselor. He's actually a pastor on the weekends. He preaches on the weekends, and he's a counselor, and he's going to do EMDR. Well, he misses two appointments with this woman. And then when she asked him to do an EMDR, what she described wasn't anything like what EMDR should be. So she's got a shyster as a therapist.
Wow.
And he can do this because he's doing it in the name of pastoral counseling. He doesn't have to be licensed. He doesn't have to have any kind of degree. And so that happens way too often. And that's why we started the Secular Therapy Project, to make sure people get good evidence-based mental health treatment.
Right. And you're absolutely right. As someone who I've talked to several different therapists in my life at different times. I've never gone through the Secular Therapy Project, but there is a difference in when you're talking to somebody who can actually understand like your experiences with religion versus someone who is either neutral or is actually not super big, not a fan that you're not spiritual, right? Because that's not an element that they feel like they can counsel you in or recommend anything through. Being an atheist, you might even be the first person a therapist can talk to that's said that they're an atheist. We're still a minority in this country, obviously. So it's good to talk to people who can understand your point of view and who has experience with dealing with clients who have had those kinds of experiences. So really awesome.
We have a team that runs the Secular Therapy Project, and one of the goals or missions of that team is to challenge schools that are training counselors and training them to actually use religious concepts or spiritual concepts. I mean, think about this. If you go to Regent's University, Pat Robertson's University, or if you go to Brigham Young University, you have to sign a statement that says you'll practice certain things. You won't masturbate, you won't have sex outside of marriage, you don't want to have lustful thoughts, all the things. And now you're going to go get a PhD or a master's degree, and you're going to counsel people.
Yeah.
I mean, especially people who are secular. It's horrendous. And we're challenging that. And the counseling associations are not upholding their own ethics that say counselors cannot bring their religious views into the therapy.
Yeah.
But counselors do it all the time.
Yeah.
We're trying to challenge that. Nobody has ever done that before. So that's another one of our many activities that we're working on. Right now.
Secular Therapy Project, which is a part of the Recovering from Religion Foundation. So one of the awesome projects that you get to do. And also you were just telling me as well, you just opened up a branch in Australia. Right?
Yeah, that's a part of it's cool. It was such a amazing opportunity. The organization's been saving money for 3 years so that we could get over to Australia. And I did a tour. I spoke in 5 different cities. I got to Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Brisbane, and back to Sydney again. I did the whole continent, and most people don't realize it, but going from Sydney to Perth is the same as going from New York to San Francisco.
Really?
That is the continent of Australia is as big as the continental United States.
Well, on this show, Dr. Ray, we don't actually believe Australia is real. We actually think it's a plant by various world governments to help, promote the globe Earth narrative.
Well, I've been there twice, and I will tell you, you feel once you get out in the countryside, you feel like you're in a different planet because nothing looks the same. The trees are weird, the animals are weird. It took me a few days to get accustomed to the fact that this ain't North America.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'd love to go there myself one day, but congratulations on doing that. That sounds really cool.
But the reason I was there was to lecture on the concept of religious trauma. And the name of my talk was Religious Trauma and Your Brain, the neuropsychology of what trauma does to you, especially when it comes in from religion. So that's been my big bugaboo lately is talking about religious trauma.
And just so the audience is informed as well, you are called Dr. Daryl Ray because you are a doctor, you are a organizational psychologist, or you've been trained in that field, so you are qualified to actually talk about some of that stuff.
Well, I started out in counseling and then went to clinical psychology. I ended up I've done all sorts of psychology.
Sure. but it's not just, I just put it out there. It's not like an internet handle. You know, there's some people who are like, oh, I'm Dr. So-and-so. It's like, no, you are a doctor. Just, you know.
Hey, it cost me $20, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, it's been great to know you and know what you've accomplished, because you're just all over the place, Dr. Ray. I see you're at every conference ever. You're speaking all the time, and you have several books under your belt. Well, specifically, one book which I've read, which is The God Virus, and some other literature that you've read. Are you planning on writing any more books or doing any re-releases, things like that?
No, I've just did another reprint on both books because we run out. I don't know I've lost count how many reprints we've done. Those two books have sold incredibly well, and I'm always surprised that a book that's what now?
You're talking about Sex and God, and also The God Virus.
The God Virus,
your
right?
two books, yeah, and you got them right there in the background. Yeah.
But The God Virus, I would like to say a few words about that one, because I wrote that thing back. I wrote it in 2008, published it in 2009. So the information came out of 2008. When I write a book, I've written 4 books in my career, but when I write a book, I write it so that whatever I say will have a high probability of being valid and true 5 years from then.
Sure.
I could now look back at all 4 of my books, and most of them still are valid to this day. But the most important thing about The God Virus is I predicted a whole lot of crazy things in that book about what's happening in our culture and what religion's doing to our culture. And I was very specific about what to be careful of. The subtitle of the book is How Religion Infects Our Lives and Culture. The God Virus, How Religion Infects Our Lives and Culture. And religion has really infected our culture.
It really has.
Yeah. What I didn't predict was what we see today. It is far worse than I predicted. But if you want to understand why religion's doing what it's doing right now, read The God Virus.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's the plug. There's the plug, ladies and gents. We're not even at the end. We're not even like showing the promo screen or anything, but Dr. Ray's out here plugging. So no, that, I mean, like you do talk about this. I mean, like I agree with you. I didn't expect, you know, Christian nationalism in particular to be the hot buzzword of the day, because to me that's like such a Handmaid's Tale era like kind of thing. I don't know. It just doesn't even feel real. It just feels like something we should have worried about 100 years ago. It's weird that it's like kind of had this resurgence and take in our popular culture, where people and not just Christian nationalism, but also like other kinds of like new conservative sort of you know, traditional Catholic movements kind of going up in every, you know, all these kinds of weird, I don't know how to describe it. They're neoconservative movements, I guess, within religious communities that are just very strange in our time, I feel like, right?
Well, it's not strange, because in my book I look back 3,000 years and I look at the patterns. The patterns are the same. Religion is like an infection, a viral infection, and a religion has to get from my brain to your brain in order to survive. The religion that can't get from one brain to the next is going to die, just like COVID. If COVID can't get from my lungs to your lungs, it's going to die. So religion has to mutate and evolve, just like biological organisms evolve, just like biological viruses evolve. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a desperate effort on the part, and I use the word desperate not to anthropomorphize this, because viruses don't think, oh, how can I infect people? That's not the way it works.
Sure. And
religions don't think, oh, how can I infect people? It just does. A virus has to survive. It's programmed to survive. There's no consciousness about it. The same thing is true of religion. Religions are programmed to survive, and the religions that don't have good programming die. Yeah. And there's lots of dead religions out there, and there's going to be more of them if they don't evolve. And that's what we're seeing right now, and a huge evolutionary process happening right before our eyes. Yeah. I'll give you an example. In the 1820s and 30s, there was 128 different religions started in a few counties in upstate New York. 128 different religions in about a 20-year time period. In fact, they even have a name for it. It's called the burned over district. Anybody from New York probably has heard the term burned over district. It's because every month or so, a new religion would start and just sweep across the area. Well, 128, but only 3 of those religions still exist today. Do you know what those are, Dan?
I'm guessing, it's probably not the Branch Davidians. It's probably not the Raelians.
Actually, you're not too far off.
Okay.
Because Seventh-day Adventists were the parent of Branch Davidians.
Yeah,
so there you
go.
It's true. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, and forget what the 4th one is. Anyway, there's actually kind of 3.5 because one of them, can't remember when it's split. But so evolution, you got 128 religions, but only 3 survive today.
Sure.
We're seeing the same thing. Evangelical Christianity is having to evolve. And the way they do that is the one that's most successful at taking over the political system is going to be able to impose itself, evolve even faster. And that's, if you can get everybody on the school board to be an evangelical Christian, then you can ban all the competing books and make sure the Bible is read by every kid.
Sure.
Or there's prayer, everybody has to pray or something like that. It's a political system. It's like rabies. Rabies gets into your nervous system and takes over your brain and makes a rat or makes a dog or makes an animal do things that they wouldn't normally do. Religion does that too. Religion makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. The most weird thing is a priest or a nun that's celibate. That's pretty weird. But it takes religion to make somebody do that.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's like I don't know. There is like I do this thing because I'm a weirdo where like I get subscribe email notifications from Gab, which is like a right-wing social media site, because the CEO is crazy and he always like personally messages like his whole audience at least once a month. Sometimes just like, hey, I think this book is really good and everyone should buy it. But like he's coming out with these articles about how we need to enforce Christian nationalism and how great this thing is for everybody. And it's like, why is this thing here? This is a site that's ostensibly supposed to be for free speech, right? That's their whole shtick, right? But then suddenly all these people are also talking about religious freedom, aka like imposing Christianity. Why is there that tie there? And it's because like there's mutual benefits for particularly conservatively minded people in the evangelical wing to kind of mesh with their goals, right? I think that's how you start to convince people. Maybe you're not so convinced about the abortion thing, right? But you see trans people and that kind of freaks you out. So you start to kind of listen to what some of these Christian nationalists say, and maybe now you change your mind. Maybe you don't think people should have abortions. Like it kind of like it gets you on one of your bigotries or one of your things you have an agreement with and gets the rest in, right? And I think that's how we're seeing this growth happen, which is very frightening because I get what you're saying. Obviously, you do talk about this in the book. It has happened before, but like the Mesopotamians didn't have the internet, Dr. Ray. Like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like there was no QAnon for Mesopotamia, right? I don't think so. I mean, like I don't know what we're going to be doing in the next 10 years politically. You know what I mean? We're living in a different world.
You're right. Well, an ideology is very similar to religion, and religions and ideologies can be identical. I mean, look at Nazi ideology was very Christian. So, we've already seen it, and they didn't have the internet, but it unfortunately worked very well there for a while.
Yeah. Just to reiterate, we do have open lines right now, so we'd love to talk to you. We'll hopefully get to lines in just a second, but again, numbers 512-991-9242, or you can call tiny.cc/calltw. You don't have to talk to us about Christianity or even religion. If you want to talk to us about other kinds of claims, whatever you believe and why, we love to hear it. And of course, Dr. Daryl Ray is, again, a doctor, knows a lot about human psychology, could probably answer some of your questions about that as well if you have specifics. I'm volunteering Dr. Ray here to do that, but I'm sure he won't mind. But real quick, we do have a super chat, and we do have these super chats right now. So thanks, folks, for donating on there. We have one from Keith X who gave $4.99, who says it's called Brigham Young University for a reason, which is like so terrible, but it is true. It's like you do get this kind of naive populace into, you know, BYU that I don't know. I don't know if you've seen this. There's this video, Dr. Ray, of these folks that go around campus asking them, and it's these two black students who are going around campus asking them what they thought about, you know, allowing black people into the priesthood, you know, like back in the 70s and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And you see, it's the most uncomfortable interactions I've ever seen from like white kids on a college campus in my life. It is so funny. I highly recommend that.
I haven't seen that. I better get that one. Better look at that one.
Very good. Very good.
Brigham Young University. I love
Brigham
it.
Young. That sounds so bad.
Well, Joseph Smith married a 14-year-old or younger.
It's not great. Mormonism is the funniest. I'm sorry. You know, I shouldn't. I have to be. You know, I have to be accepting and open to all people's walks of life and worldviews. But man, Mormonism is just really funny on the outside. I'm not gonna lie, it is a very funny religion to me. Like, it's just the most American religion ever. Honestly, it's kind of cool in that way, but it's very weird. It's so strange. Hopefully, we can get some calls with that. But going back to you, Dr. Ray. What else has been going on that you've been talking about? Well, I know you had some stuff you wanted to tell me too.
Yeah, coming up in September, we have our fall excursion. We've done it now this will be our 4th year, I believe. And it's just we don't like the word retreat, but that's what it is. We call it the excursion to get away from that church, you know, churchiness. And it's just people coming together for a nice long weekend and hearing some speakers and getting into groups and talking about their experience leaving religion, and with trained therapists and trained volunteers in the environment. It'll take place in the 3rd week of September in East Tennessee, and I regret that we have it in Tennessee, but because of what's happened in the last month. Yeah, but we can't. We're already committed, of course. It's a beautiful setting, and we've got 2 big old beautiful log cabins, beautiful big kitchen, big reading room, and we'll have karaoke there. We'll sing all sorts of. People can karaoke if they want, or they can go sleep in the other cabin. We don't care. It's not like church camp where you have to do this or have to do that.
That's what I was going to ask. So, like, when's Bible study? Like, I don't know.
Well,
that seems pretty important.
It's probably the best thing. We might have an anti-Bible study. I hadn't thought about that.
Anti-Bible study. What does that mean?
We'll stand up and read Bible, verses out of the Bible where all the children get killed.
Man,
all the foreskin get cut off, or whatever it is.
That's just a regular Bible study at that point, right? I don't know.
Not everybody that comes is Christian, though. We have ex-Muslims. We have, of course, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, which I've been told they're not really Christians. So I don't, know what to classify them. But so it's for anybody. Anybody can come. Anybody can come to heal, to hear other people's stories. And we will have about 3 therapists there. So if you just want to sit down and talk to somebody who's well-trained, they're not there to do therapy because they don't have enough time, obviously, and they may not be licensed in Tennessee, so we don't allow that. But still, if you have a crisis, if you need somebody to talk to, we've got people to talk to, and I guarantee it's a lot of fun, and you'll meet a lot of people that are going through the same thing you are, or some version of it, probably.
And where should people go if they want to go do that?
Go to recoveringfromreligion.org, and at the top of the menu, there's the excursion. And the excursion, they just register. And I will say this: if you want to come, you better get signed up soon. My treasurer told me just yesterday that we're almost 80% full. We don't have that many beds left now. So there
you go.
We have sold out the last 2 years, and we'll sell out again this year.
Dr. Ray's pulling out all the techniques here. He's like, look, you got to buy now. All right.
Well, we don't have an overflow, but you still could come. You can pay just for the attendance and go find a hotel yourself, or you can camp. There's a campground just down the road. You can go camp out. I don't care. We don't care.
Cool.
But yeah. So Anyway, that's
I need to go to one of those. That sounds like a good time.
oh, it's a blast. Dave,
Yeah,
we had special speakers the last few years. Dave Warnock was one of our special speakers. I know you know David.
yeah,
And Aaron Lewis was one of our special speakers last year.
very cool.
You know Aaron, the stripper?
Yes,
Okay.
we are familiar with Aaron Lewis.
Yes.
On this program. So
I love Aaron. She came. She was one of our special speakers. Anyway.
yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, thanks for plugging that, and we'll have links to some of that stuff on screen at the end as well. Real quickly though, we do have another super chat from Hell's Bells, who gives $6.66. No particular reason for that number.
I
Who
love
says, "Hi Dan, hi Daryl, Dr. Ray. Please tell the audience how RFR got started."
Oh, well,
yeah,
okay.
I think we have time for that. Let's talk about that.
Okay, well, quickly. Oh, I should plug the fundraiser. We have a big fundraiser coming up next month, and I think you guys got some links and stuff for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we give all our services away for free, so we need people like you to donate. But how it got started, it was kind of an accident, if you will. And I was trying to promote my book, The God Virus, and I hired this publicist who was pretty much useless and worthless, except he had one good idea. And he said, Daryl, why don't you create an organization and call it Recover from Religion and use that to sell your books? And I thought, okay. And I put an advertisement up a couple weeks ahead of time for a meetup, and got a room in the back of the local IHOP restaurant. And 11 people showed up, and I only knew one person in the group. After about 2 or 3 hours, the restaurant manager is kicking us out because they're closing it down. But in that meantime, I've had people crying. I've had people hugging each other, people who didn't know each other, had never seen each other, are sharing the deepest parts of their story. And I only asked 2 questions. I said, how did religion hurt you? And how have you benefited by leaving? And I opened a dam. I had no idea. At the end of that meeting, I realized this isn't a gimmick. I'm not trying to just sell books. This is important. There's people, we need to do something about this.
Wow.
So I couldn't help everybody. So that's what, after a few meetings, I realized I need to just make this an organization. And that's where it started in 2009.
I don't think I knew that story. You might have the most positive human, and because you've helped a lot of people since then. I think you've probably been the genesis of the most positive human impact out of an IHOP that anyone has ever actually had, right? I mean,
I've only
seen bad things. Only seen bad things come out of IHOPs. That might be that's a good. I don't know.
Well, here's the problem in Kansas City. You have to be careful when you say IHOP, because there's the International House of Prayer here too.
That's right. There is that too. It's a different IHOP with many bad things coming out of it. Oh, not as many good things. Here's
the cool thing. The founder of the International House of Prayer, his children are no longer a part of that organization. And
I've heard this.
I've heard this. And they came to my house a couple of years ago and had supper. I got to meet them and we just interact. Yeah, at my home. It was really fun.
Oh, wow.
Really enjoyed that.
That's interesting. That man. Ooh, I'd love to explore that, but we really should move on because we got a couple callers who do want to talk to us real quickly. Though we do have another super chat from James Call, who became a member for 2 months, gave him $5. Who said, "Showing some love for DDR and OD." Thank you so much, James, for doing that.
Thank you.
Very nice. And of course, before we get started with the calls, I always have to thank the patron of the week, because every single week I always give a shout out to the folks who donate on the Patreon. As you guys know, I try to say this as often as I can. None of the hosts who appear on this show, we don't get paid for what we do here, and a lot of the crew does not either. This is mostly done on a volunteer basis. We do have some folks that work for the ACA full-time and contract work and stuff, but all the bills that need to get paid have to get paid, and you can help with that by doing Patreon. And so thank you guys so much for donating on the Truth Planet Patreon. You guys rock. We of course always give a shout out to one person every week. So this week's patron of the week is going to be Neil, the 604 Atheist. Thank you so much, Neil. Neil's been a long time supporter, like one of the first on Patreon. So glad we got to give him a shout out again this week. Really cool guy. Love you, Neil. And of course,
I,
thank you to everyone that donates on Patreon. What's up, Daryl?
I know that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody knows Neil.
Yeah, he's great.
He's been
I love
around.
him.
You know what I mean? He gets around. But again, thank you to everybody that donates. And with that done, I think we should go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and take our first call. We have a couple different ones. This is a good one, I think, to start with for you, Dr. Ray. We have Will, who's calling in from Texas. Will, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I appreciate the jokes earlier tonight, and I wanted to call in and ask largely Dr. Ray, but of course, if you have any thoughts, Dan, I would appreciate them too. What are the most common signs of religious trauma? And then I have a couple of follow-up questions after that.
Well, it varies quite a bit, and there's some controversy about whether we call it a syndrome or not. I think ultimately we may get there, but right now the main things we're looking for is, people are having trouble sleeping as a result of something like religious abuse when they were young, fear of hell, fear of Armageddon, those kind of things that people perseverate and they can't get out of their head. And it affects their ability to work. It affects their ability to have normal relationships. Another thing is sexual difficulties, sexual function that is related to religion. For example, an adult person who as a child was spanked or beaten because they were caught by their parents masturbating or something like that. That can really cause sexual trauma that manifests itself later in adulthood. There's quite a few different things that we look for like that. But the thing is, all we have to do as psychologists these days is look at the DSM and identify what are trauma symptoms. If we're seeing those symptoms, that some of the things I named, if you trace those back to religion, then we can call it religious trauma. If you trace it back to watching an IED kill your buddies in Afghanistan, that's war trauma. There's lots of things that cause trauma. Religion's one of them. So we're not trying to say religion causes all trauma. There's a lot of other things. So
we're just kind of identifying the source of that particular trauma.
Yes, but knowing the source can help with the treatment. Because if you're a therapist and you're trained in PTSD, great. But what if you're still a Christian and your own things, you haven't dealt with your own shit, and you give off things that would trigger this person? Maybe you've got a Bible in or maybe you wear a cross. I mean, those are the kinds of things that can undermine a therapeutic relationship, and the therapist doesn't even know it. That's why it's so important to keep religion out of your therapy practice. Keep the Bibles out, keep the Quran out. Don't wear a cross, don't do that stuff, because people are coming to you for help and they may be traumatized. What if that person was, for example, a 14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl brought in front of the Baptist congregation and forced to confess that she had sex with her boyfriend? Of course, they didn't bring the boyfriend up there. Well, now as an adult, 15, 20 years later, she cannot function in her marriage. And so they're having marital problems. Well, okay, you could go to a couples therapist and the therapist would say, I can help you. But if you don't understand where that came from, help that person understand the trauma that was caused by being shamed in front of the entire congregation. I mean, I can't even get my head around that. I have heard this story way too many times, especially in fundamentalist Baptist churches. So I don't know. Well, I can go on and on, as you probably know. So that's my short answer.
Yeah, and I know you asked me for an answer too, but honestly, Dr. Ray just gave a better one than I could have ever said. So I'm gonna leave it to that. But Will, did you have a follow-up question too you wanted to ask?
Sure, I appreciate the response. I really appreciated what you said, Dr. Ray, about these different ways that trauma can be caused, and it's a good thing to remember. People that have been gaslit by Christianity in general, into believing it, and I'm just making a broad statement here, seem unable to draw parallels between abusive behavior and the Christian God, at least from my attempts at it. What's a better way to help a person see these issues?
Well, I just went, as I mentioned earlier, I just did a tour of all of Australia talking about religious trauma and your brain. And that's the very thing I was talking about through this talk. And I've given it I will be giving it some other places. But my short answer would be, if when it comes out on YouTube, watch it. It'll give you some answers to your question. But the problem is that when you are being indoctrinated with a given religion at 4 years old, at 5 years old, early childhood, you do not have the critical thinking skills to ask your parents, why are you raising me Mormon? Why not raise me Buddhist or Catholic or something else? It's the same as for language. You're probably raised, if you're raised in Texas, you're raised with an English or Spanish around you, and you didn't ask your parents, why aren't you teaching me Chinese? Why aren't you teaching me German? That never occurs to a child any more than it occurs to a child to say, why this religion, why not others? When a child is indoctrinated with something that early in life, their brain literally wires the brain that way. And then there's other messages that come in with that indoctrination, like fear of hell, fear of abandonment, fear of shunning, fear of Armageddon, whatever your particular religion's fear aspect is, that's getting wired in as well. Fast forward 10 years, when you're starting to get some critical thinking skills, that wiring is still there. You are still a 5-year-old indoctrinated child. And that's why we see adults that are 30, 40, 50 years old that are atheists. I've been an atheist for 20 years, people tell me, and I still wake up with cold sweats for fear of hell. Well, that's clear evidence that something was brainwashed, programmed into you at a very early age. And it takes some sophisticated treatment to help you move through that. I'm going to suggest, if it's something you're having trouble getting over, you should get some help with a trained therapist who understands or can work with religious trauma. And if they don't know what religious trauma is, which many therapists don't, then there's many therapists that are good at trauma treatment. But when you talk to them, when you go in to talk to them, explain what you experienced and it was caused by religion, and you want to make sure that piece of it is explored. And you'll probably get some good treatment, because the treatment for trauma is not the same, but it's very close to the same in many aspects of whatever the etiology, the cause of the trauma. I'm not saying they're identical, and a person would be well informed. A therapist should be well informed about different kinds of trauma.
Sure.
So find a therapist that's evidence-based, licensed, and secular. That's why we started the Secular Therapy Project. But I don't know if you're speaking for yourself. It sounds like you may be. Are you?
In some ways, I definitely, many people in Texas, grew up religious, Christianity specifically. And, even though I've been out of it for 8 years now, I still have a hard time. Like, I can look at it intellectually at the concepts that are part of Christianity, the basic concepts that everyone shares, and say, this doesn't make sense, this is abusive, etc. But I don't feel that. And so, largely speaking, I have the angry atheist kind of thing going on to a wide extent, but, I try to temper it. But certainly, and I do have, thankfully, a secular therapist who has been very helpful in going through these things, and I highly recommend that for everyone that is able to do so. Thank you very much for your responses. That's all I have.
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Will. Thank you so much for calling on that and being open about that as well. I can speak You know, I've actually gone back and forth on this show of whether I said I've ever experienced religious trauma. I realize now in retrospect, the symptoms that I had displayed at the time, I think match up with the criteria of religious trauma. I think I've thankfully pretty much completely recovered from that. But I did have nightmares about going to hell, and I did wake up in cold sweats, and I did have issues that, you know what, I'll be honest, affected my sexual dysfunction because I thought I was like sinning because I was, you know, interested in like dating women and stuff and wanting to do the kinds of stuff that normal people my age did, but I was taught was wrong to have those thoughts, and that's a shitty thing. That's a shitty thing I had to go through, and I don't wish it on anybody. And I cannot imagine experiencing those symptoms today and continuing to have those. Yeah, if you do feel like you have those things, please go find somebody that you can talk to about it. You know, that's what I would say. But no, I appreciate Will calling in.
I want to say
asking you,
one more thing, if Will's
Yeah.
listening, hopefully is
Mm-hmm.
that our brains are pretty complex, but
Yeah.
to simplify this, you've got two parts to your brain. You got the logical part and the emotional part. And the emotional part, the amygdala, and the logical part of the brain does not form until much later. I mean, you're in your late teens before the prefrontal cortex is starting to mature. So all the time until you're 14 or 15, your brain is very susceptible to these programming and this fear-based kinds of training. So that's why you need help, because you usually can't logic your way out of this, because it's not a logical problem. It's an emotional problem.
Can I ask you a question? I'm going to do some announcements in a second here, but I want to know this for you, Dr. Wright, because you used the term earlier and you used the word brainwashing. Now, I've heard in the psychology community that word is kind of a controversial word to use because there's been different.
I should probably. I mean, I'm a child of my own age, right?
Sure. Well, please,
bad. It's probably a bad concept.
Okay.
But most people know exactly what I'm saying when I say it.
Sure.
There's been some indoctrination. It would be better to use the word indoctrination.
Yeah. Well, I guess I've read about this, the people trying these like anti-brainwashing kind of therapies and stuff, but like they're not really. I don't know. I've read the effectiveness is questionable on some of the actual techniques. So like, what you're advocating for, I don't think is that kind of therapy.
No.
No.
Thanks for calling me out on that.
Oh, no,
I stand corrected. You're right. You're absolutely right. It slips out of my mouth.
No. I totally understand that. It's just something like, as soon as I heard, when I first discovered that was a very particular object of study within the literature, I thought that was interesting because you hear brainwashing in the common vernacular, and then you hear it like as when it's tried to been used as an academic term, it hasn't.
Yeah, it shouldn't come out of the mouth of a reasonable psychologist.
No, I'm not trying to call you out. I'm not trying to I was just asking for.
However, if your audience is interested in reading about the origins of what this all is, there's a great book you can get at the library probably called Battle for the Mind. It's written by a man named William Sargent in 1957. He was hired literally by the U.S. government to study this. He's a psychiatrist to study how how Korea and China were getting American soldiers to confess. How were they changing their minds so dramatically and getting them to say things that everybody knew they didn't really believe. So
interesting.
This book is really interesting. And here's why I bring this up.
Okay.
He starts out by showing how Charles and John Wesley did their English revivals and how they used these mind-changing and mind-stimulating and fear-mongering kinds of techniques. So he starts off with the Methodist Church and shows how the Methodist Church was founded on these techniques. And then he moves on into very interesting psychology. It's an old book. You've got to kind of overlook the 1950s medical terminology, but the basis for it is phenomenal. It opened my eyes to so much. It's one of the most impactful books I've read.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That you said Wesley and the old Methodist in me, like, like just did a little jump because like that's
Charles Wesley was a hypnotist par excellence. He could get 1,000 people in a tent rolling in the aisles. And remember, this was before there was amplification and microphones. This is in the mid 1700s.
Yeah.
Pretty radical kinds of abilities that he had.
Maybe he was like an X-Man. You ever think about that?
He was like a Jim Jones is what he was.
Oh, yeah. Well, probably. That's probably closer to the truth. Anyway, we do have other callers. We should probably go talk to some more folks. But before we do that, I just want to thank everybody that's donated super chats so far. You guys are awesome. We will be reading those on air if you decide to donate. And we of course, appreciate that. Of course, thanks again to everyone who's donated on Patreon. One other way I want to tell you about how you can support us is by becoming a member. You can do that for as little as 99 cents a month. You get emojis in the chat. Your name gets highlighted, and you do get immune to the slow mode. It's I say pretty reasonable way to support us. 99 cents a month, not a lot. That's one app from the App Store a month, if that, right? Because some of them are even free. So something to think about. One other thing as well, I want to point out the Truth Wanted store is up and running again, and this month is special. We have our top 3 designs from this past year, and this is happening for May only. I'm biased because I helped contribute to all 3 of these designs, but they were objectively our most popular designs, so we are bringing them back. Check those out if you're interested. Go to tiny.cc/merchaca to get your shirts, and of course we have all the other swag at the store if you'd like to support us that way. One other thing before we move on, if you want to hear the show in audio only, you can do that. Just go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, and you can listen to all of the ACA shows in audio form. That's my preferred method of listening. And if you want to be like me, you should go listen to the podcasts. So check that out. And with that, let's talk to some more people. We got, I think this might be a quick one. We'll see. We got Mary who's calling in from Florida. Mary, what's going on?
Hi, I'm so glad to hear both of you, Dan and Dr. Ray. I just tuned in, so I missed the dates and times of the retreat in Tennessee. Could you repeat those for me, please?
I will be happy to do that, and I'm gonna have to get my calendar out and tell you first. Okay, at September 22nd through the 24th are the official dates. Some people come a little bit early, some people might stay a little bit late. That's up to you. But the main part of the excursion is the 22nd through the 24th. And I'm not a salesman. I'm not trying to sell anything. Well, I am trying to sell something.
Yeah, I was gonna say you are trying to tell people to buy this thing. So I think that qualifies.
I'm serious. We're 80% full. We will sell out. So I don't know when we'll sell out, but we did last year, and so we're planning on selling out this year. So get your registration in as soon as you can. If you can.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, there you go, Mary.
Calling, Mary. Did you have a question?
What website?
Oh, go to
can I go?
recoveringfromreligion.org website.
Okay.
recoveringfromreligion.org, and you will find all the information there, all the application. And we also we have donors that pay more than the cost. They literally give us extra money to try and subsidize. So if you're a listener out there and you can't afford the whole amount, if you submit a financial need kind of a request, we've got some money to subsidize a few people. We can't subsidize everybody, of course. Anyway, we want this to be available to lots of people. Did you have a question other than that, Mary?
Well, I've stayed in the Smoky Mountains in a cabin for a week years ago and loved it. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'll go find more info. But also talking about kind of the brainwashing and as I was a teacher for 30 years, elementary children, and I've taken a lot of psychology on brain maturation and how, as you know, Dr. Ray, so many connections are made between the ages of birth to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start putting in their heads of they're born full of sin and worthy of hell if they don't buy this story. And and that's why I think you were talking about, even as adults that leave religion, they still have this fear of burning in hell because it was drilled in their brain at such a crucial time of brain connections and believing everything your parents tell you and all of that. If you could speak to that a little bit on early childhood development and what you tell your children.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mary. Developmental psychology is, I think, really critical to understanding childhood trauma and how childhood trauma manifests itself in adulthood. There's actually a test. You can go out on the internet. You can look it up, ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences. That's the name of it. It's a test, very simple test, that was developed by the Center for Disease Control about 15 years ago. It's been validated in all sorts of ways.
I'm sorry.
Adverse
what?
Adverse childhood experiences. Adverse childhood experiences. It's called the ACE test. You'll find it real easy. And it asks I think it only asks like 9 questions. And how you answer will tell you whether you experienced, it will not tell you whether you experienced trauma. It'll tell you experienced, some of your experiences could lead to trauma or could have been traumatizing. The test will not diagnose you, but what it will do is give you an idea of how your childhood experiences maybe manifested themselves in your adult life too. It's a very important test. It will not tell you that you are religiously traumatized. I'm not saying that.
Sure.
It will just say what you experienced in childhood may be part of the reason for how you're behaving now in adulthood.
Yeah.
And that could be related to sexual abuse that was not related to religion. It could be related to religion. You don't know. But I do recommend that test, Mary. Go out and get it. I think you'll find it interesting, informative. And as a former teacher, I recommend it to teachers because you should be aware of these developmental issues. And you're talking about brain development and all the neurological connections that are happening. Yeah, by 3 years old, you've got a lot of hardwiring going on right there.
Yes, and because you're the authority figure, and they're like, well, they told me Santa Claus comes and Jesus, whatever, story they want to go with that, and I taught second grade my last 10 years of teaching, and sometimes religion would come up in my classroom, and of course I never said, oh, I'm an atheist, I would not do that.
Sure. Right.
For legal reasons,
of course.
But a couple of questions would come up to me, and I would just say, there are many religions in the world and beliefs, and talk to your parents about that, because I was certainly not going to, shit on their beliefs. But but also in second grade, that's that age between, probably very well, Dr. Ray, Piaget's studies.
Oh, yeah.
Of sensory motor and pre-operational between 2 and 7. So my kids were at that age where some of them still believed, and others were at that point, well, wait a minute, Santa can't go around the world, I found it delightful. And so the only thing I knew to say, because the kids would debate on it about Santa, and they would ask me if I believe in Santa. and the best answer I could give at the time, which I felt was appropriate and if you agree with me, fine. If you don't agree with me on my response to them, I'd like to hear that view. But because I didn't want to squash the what their parents had told them about Santa, I would just say, well, he's coming to my house.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary, I don't care how you responded. I mean, that's a tough situation. But let me say this, because right on target for where you were. As children, our brains as primates, and this is true of primates in general, not just humans, the primate brain is pre-programmed, I guess you could say, genetically, to follow what the parent says. I mean, whether you're a monkey or a human, if the parent says, don't go over there, the cheetah will eat you, you better listen or you won't survive and propagate your genes.
Right.
But that same parent says, don't go over there because there's demons in the bushes. Your brain processes that identically. There's no discrimination. So being afraid of lions or cheetahs is a healthy thing, but it's setting in the brain at exactly the same spot and targets the amygdala in exactly the same way as demons over there. So it's hard. That's why it's so hard to get out of a system once it's been indoctrinated into a child. And many adults suffer from this for years. Now, we do know that you can get out of it, as we've got an example sitting right here with Dan. Dan clearly had symptoms, but he's moved on. Whether you needed therapy or not, I don't know, and I don't care. But many people do need therapy. But even if you don't go to therapy, being aware of what you're experiencing will help you start moving through it. Maybe you can learn some skills like mindfulness, like maybe lucid dreaming to try and help you move through this process. Because the brain is just acting on what it was programmed to do at 3 and 4 years old. And you're trying to reprogram the brain. And you wouldn't want to reprogram out the fear of lions. That's a good thing. You would want to reprogram the fear of demons. It's just a technical, a difficult thing to do without some technical help from somebody. And I do think these kind of conversations that we're having tonight can help people at least become aware. Why do I have so much trouble sleeping? Why do I have so much trouble relaxing when I'm having sex with my partner? Why do I feel guilty when I have lustful thoughts or I masturbate? Those are all things that are probably directly related to religious programming about that 3 to 7 year old time period.
Yeah, definitely. And like it's so, I don't know how often this happens outside of the United States, but in America, we do have this thing called Sunday school, and it's like, just even the name of it, right? It's like when you take kids to that, usually against their will, most kids don't want to go. And you bring it as part of their curriculum. First of all, the history of actual Sunday school is interesting because old Sunday school, like Victorian era Sunday schools, they actually learned how to like read the alphabet and write, and also learn Christian doctrine. But if you put that in there and say, yeah, this is a part of your development, this is what you need, you can see how it's hard for people to distinguish that from the rest of reality, right? Like it's one thing when a kid finds out, okay, Santa's not real, because suddenly everybody in your life validates that. Okay, all the adults will tell you, yeah, okay, it's not really real. But then the rest of the adults still believe in the whole God thing. That seems more real somehow, if everybody in your life has those beliefs and validates that. And having been in a situation where I've been in an education environment and also been asked about my personal religious beliefs, because kids are curious and they want to know. You can't just be like, oh, I'm an atheist, because there are legal complications with doing stuff like that. And if you're a kid, you've never met somebody, you don't even know that you've met an atheist, because there's social stigmas for even talking about non-belief in something like that. So it's a very complicated issue that we have, particularly in the United States, when it comes to talking about kids about religion. That is pretty awful for most involved. So I feel for you there, Mary. But yeah, thanks for calling in about the questions that you had. Those were some great questions.
But with the Santa claim,
Mm.
I had to walk a fine line between parents who, promoted the fantasy belief in Santa and those that were like, no. So that's why, and maybe it wasn't a good response, Dr. Ray, when I said, he's coming to my house. I mean, because there was evidence. Hey, there's gifts in the morning.
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to say, well, it's up to you to believe that, when they don't really have the skills to know what to believe and what not to believe. They're, especially if they're at an age where they're just absorbing what adults tell them, right? So that's a tough one. I don't know, but it sounds like Daryl Ray says whatever. So he
I don't
says
care.
Dr. Daryl Ray endorses lying to children about Santa being real.
No. I'm in favor of Mary keeping her job. That's all. That's what I'm in favor of.
Well,
There
I'm
is
retired,
one.
so
Good. So you don't
it's
have to
all
worry
good.
about it.
Yeah.
There is
No.
one concept that most of us don't realize we are subjected to every day of our lives practically, and that is the notion of social signaling. There's tons of social signaling going on around us, and our brains are designed in a non-religious sense to respond to the social environment. We're very good at that. Humans, we're the best species on the planet to respond to social signaling. But that social signaling gets us to do behaviors without us even realizing it. And that's why it's so hard to get out of, say, a cult, because every social signal around you says the cult is right. But you walk, a mile this way or a mile that way, and you can find another cult or a religion or belief structure, but you can't get out of it because your daily social signaling is within the cult. We call that being in the bubble, of course.
Yeah.
So we as skeptics, as people who we think for ourselves, we realize that we're not as independent thinkers as we think we are. We're highly influenced by our social environment.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to come out as an atheist if I'm in the middle of a church with a bunch of Baptists at a funeral. The social signaling is pretty that's wrong. It's the wrong place to be doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's why. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
That's like in a classroom, I didn't feel I could say that. I would have 3/4 of my parents pulling their kids out had I ever used the word atheist in my classroom.
Oh,
So
yeah, sure.
I avoided that. I avoided that word, and we had a little girl one year. She wanted to bring her Bible. She kept bringing her Bible in to read during, if you finished your work early, you can read a book, on their grade level, or I would pull them one-on-one to help them with some skills they need. This one girl brought her Bible, and she wanted to read her Bible during her free reading time, and I had to go to the principal and say, can she do this? And if I tell her no, she can't, am I going to be in trouble for telling her not to read her Bible at school? And finally the principal talked to the parents and said, well, we have, appropriate on grade level books that she needs to be reading from the library, and we kind of squashed it and didn't get a lot of pushback from it. But and then with the 10 Commandments wanting to be posted in Texas schools, I'm like, okay,
right.
Are you gonna put the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple in? Are you gonna put the Eightfold Path and 4 Noble Truths of Buddhism in? Are you gonna put the Hindu?
We definitely live in a country that privileges Christian ways of life and teachings, even though we are supposed to have a constitution that protects against that. But it is really frustrating to see. I'm sorry to cut you off, Mary. We do have to go ahead and let you go because we got some other callers we need to get to and some announcements we need to get to as well. But thank you so much for calling.
Thanks, Mary.
And
I hope to see Dr. Ray in Tennessee.
All right.
Yeah.
Look forward to it. Remind me when you get there because I'll forget.
Yeah. Let's see that happens. Now you have a name to look out for on your list.
All right. I
Dr.
will.
Ray for
Thanks.
Mary. But I really appreciate all the calls we've had so far. We're going to try to get to one other call here in just a second. Before we do, I want to remind you guys how you can contact the show. You can do it truth@atheist-community.org. You can also email the show at tv@atheist-community.org and see what's going on our website at atheist-community.org. If you're going to be in the Austin area on May 28th, we will be broadcasting live in the Free Thought Library. We're going to have Talk Heathen hosted by Forrest Valkai and a special guest, Sophia Spina, who auditioned and did an amazing job, guys. You are going to love her. She is great. Those of you who've been following, we did have auditions in February, and Sophia was one of the hosts that we said, hey, come on board. So check that out. Also, Atheist Experience will be hosted that day by Forrest Valkai and Jim Barrow. So doors open at noon, and of course, it's always free. So hopefully we'll see you there in May. Well, it is May, but last weekend of May is what I mean to say, obviously, of course. Yeah, with that, let's see if we can get at least one more call. This is we're going to be taking a left turn here, Dr. Ray.
Okay.
We're talking to Vincent, who is calling in from England, and Vincent says he believes in aliens, but probably not what we think. Is that right, Vincent?
That is correct. Yeah. Hello. I've spoken to you before, Dan, and Dr. Daryl Ray. That's very nice to hear from you and speak to you for the first time. Seen you a lot on different shows and think you're a brilliant bloke. So nice to speak to you.
Thank you.
Nice. All right, Vincent, what do you got for us? Because that's a premise that I want to hear the thesis on. Okay, what do you got?
So when I say aliens, I'm not saying the flying saucer kind.
Okay.
I'm saying that there might be animals on other planets which would technically be aliens.
Sure.
But like on Earth, we have animals that survive in very hospitable climates, like underwater volcanoes, sort of like tropics. Some that come out at night and live in caves. That, yeah, I could see there being some form of animal life which would be technically an alien to us, but is just, yeah, I don't think they have the technology to fly anywhere, especially outside their planet.
Okay.
So,
yeah. On a probability basis, right? From 0% saying I don't think they exist at all, 100% being I know absolutely for a fact that they're out there. Where would you say you're at?
Aliens on another planet would definitely be like high 90s.
Yeah.
Because we have the animals that exist in a hospitable planet. Aliens that can travel to other planets is quite a lot lower. It would be sort of 10-20%. It's probably even less than that. Probably.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vincent. I agree with you. I think just based on statistical likelihood alone, there has to at least be, if not what we would call archaic, like proto-bacteria, archaic form of life out there, to maybe advanced complex organisms like what we have with, cells with nucleuses and, the whole 9 yards. I think there has to be at least something out there. But I also agree with you with the knowledge that we know about physics right now, right? Knowing that the universe is expanding and that we can't get past the speed of light. Any planets that we encounter, especially those that are going to be like outside of our own galaxy, are just ones that we will not be able to ever go to, and they will not be able to come to us. So we won't be able to actually have that interaction, right? I mean, obviously we are seeing the light from stars and places, that are older than what we've been able to travel to. But everything that we see up in the sky, as any first year astronomy student would know, is actually the result of billions of years old sometimes, depending, out in different directions. So Yeah, I'm with you there. I do think it's very likely. In fact, maybe, absolute that there has to be other life. But maybe not as intelligent as us, and probably will never get to us. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah.
Dr. Ray?
Oh, I actually agree with Vincent about
Yeah.
almost completely.
Yeah.
I'd put it at 99.9% that there's life out there. It may be bacterial, it may be viral or fungal, but there's probably life. And all we have to do is find something on Enceladus, or some other moon from Jupiter or Saturn, and that would convince me that it's, well, number one, that'd make it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two means that there's probably millions and millions of other solar systems out there that have life of some kind. It's the issue. It's that old test. I can't remember the name of it, but that physicist that had the test in the 1960s. Why haven't they contacted us? I don't know.
Oh, you're talking about the Fermi paradox.
Yeah, the
Fermi paradox.
Yeah, the Fermi paradox. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's a good way to look at it. I haven't seen many other ways to look at it. We only have a sample of one. That's not a very good sample right now.
No, I mean, I live in a city where Professor Stephen Hawking comes from, so.
Right.
Yeah, we have a brilliant museum here called the Museum of Zoology, and obviously lots of some ancient animals and some extinct, but it's the I'll try and get my words out. The diversity of them is just amazing, from the simple insects to the big whale. It's just, there's got to be an animal out there. As us.
I think it's likely. But here's the problem, of course, and Dr. Ray mentions the Fermi paradox, right? So if you know about the Fermi paradox, you know that there's this thing with it called the Drake equation, and the Drake equation is basically this. I believe it's calculus equation that plugs in several different variables. And some of it is talking about variables such as the rate of formation of stars, the rate of formation of like planetary systems, right? But it also accounts, which are things that we know, more or less, we have rough ideas on. But it also accounts for other things that we don't know, like the rate at which a civilization can develop interplanetary and civilization changing travel, right? And along with some other things that we just can't actually calculate. So this is one of those questions where it's like we actually can't even calculate the statistical likelihood of us being alone in the universe or not having contact without even knowing some stuff that we may never know the answer to, which is why this is such a hard question to even put a number on probability wise of what we think is likely and what's not likely. We have a sample set when it comes to intelligent life of one, which is just our Earth, right? We don't have anything else to compare it to. And everything else in the observable universe that we've been able to come to, we've not found any other evidence of. Now, of course, every once in a while, you're going to read stories about, we found signals that have these repeating signals from these stars. And that's kind of interesting and very weird. But that's all we got. We just got some weird signals that some astronomer in Hawaii at a telescope figured out one day. And that's all we got. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You
had a question there?
The sort of,
Go ahead.
So would you not count the different inhospitable climates on Earth to be a different sample size? Because obviously, we can exist at an underwater volcano, say,
sure,
for multiple reasons. Would that make this if there was sorry, carry on.
When I say sample size, I just mean planets with life, right? That's all I mean. So we have one planet with life on it.
Yeah.
Now we have some suggestive evidence that, hey, some other planets even within our own solar system have evidence of having water on it, for example. But we can't even figure out, does that mean that there was microscopic life on there? Well, we have to be able to get to the moons of Jupiter and stuff, right? We got to get the Calypso, which we can't bring back samples from. That's just not a thing. So there's a lot of stuff that we're just not going to know and probably never know, which is sad, unless we get visited by interstellar beings within the next decade. And honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised. if that happened. I mean, there's been a lot of shit that's gone down. And I don't know. Could be a thing.
Vincent, I think
Yeah.
I think your point is that there's extremophiles, or what do they call them?
Sure. Yeah.
Out there, and I think those are probably a model for what life there might be. I mean, before the Great Oxidation, there was life here, but it was weird life. It was very different than what we see now. And there's probably a lot of planets out there that never went through the Great Oxidation, so they've got a biota that thrives on sulfur, or something besides oxygen, of course.
Yeah, there's also the problem of we don't even know exactly how our own life on Earth formed yet. We have ideas and estimations and rough understandings of certain abiotic processes. But there's still a lot of question marks there, and that's the big thing creationists always stick the atheist camp in, by the way, which is, how does life start then? And we don't know, but we have a better idea than just some guy and a girl had sex in a garden in Africa maybe, and all the human race came out of it. I don't know. That's if I'm gonna make bets, I'm gonna go with the former rather than the latter. But hey, that's just me. Vince, did you have anything else before we let you go tonight?
No, I was just going to say thank you very much, guys, for speaking to me and taking my call. You've been great to talk to.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for waiting as well. Of course, thank you to everybody that's called in tonight. We've had some great topics of conversation. I want to say also real quick. Oh no, I'm not going to say this right now, but we have a super chat. We need to get to this first. We have a very generous super chat from Anton Gomez, who gave $66. And 60 cents.
Yeah, don't
gotta add that 60 cents. They upped the $6.66 and went $66.
I love that.
50 cents, which is awesome. Who said, "Hello, Dr. Ray. How difficult do you think it is to sue woo companies like homeopathy, med distributors, or biodecoding therapy centers? Are you a legal expert, Dr. Ray? Do you know the difficulty?"
I'm not a lawyer. First of all, I'm going to tell Anton. I mean, that my phone number ends in 666.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's my phone. And I've had that phone number for 20 years.
Don't say the whole phone number now.
I won't. I'm just saying that's what in. And I do have okay. Anyway, Anton, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a clear answer to that. My answer is most of those companies put those fine print on their products that allow them to get around the FDA.
Yeah.
Because the homeopathy and the alternative medicine people have been very good at lobbying the Congress to put loopholes in there, like religion does. Religion's got loopholes in all our legal system. Homeopathy and alternative therapies and chiropractic, all these things have got loopholes. So you can't sue somebody when there's a loophole. That's what I know. Again, I'm not a lawyer.
I need to point out something. I missed something here in this super chat because the crew, wonderful crew, helps retype it to me here so I can read it out for you guys. But they actually donated in pesos. It was not dollars, which makes sense. Makes a little more sense, but still very generous. Obviously, we thank you so much for the donation on that. Yeah,
we have time for a funny story.
You know what? For you, we got time for a funny story, Dr. Ray. What do you got?
I got that phone number with 666 on it, and I met this not long after I met this hot gal at a dinner party, but she was with her boyfriend, and I really liked her, and we seemed to connect. But I left the party not really thinking about it. Not long after that, I found out she dumped her boyfriend. I thought, well, hey, I'm going to move in there. So we connected through a mutual friend, and then the day of our coffee date, we're just going to meet for coffee. I sent her an email, says, in case you need to call me or you get lost or something, here's my phone number. It took her about 30 seconds to respond and say, I don't think I want to go out with anybody with that phone number. Turns out she was a fundamentalist Baptist.
No.
So it was a good screening device to keep me from dating the wrong people.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, you dodged a bullet, right?
I really did.
Yeah. That is a funny story. Wow. Over a phone number too.
Yeah. There you go.
That is, that's very silly, But on that note, I again want to thank you so much, Dr. Ray, for being on today's program. It was a treat to have you back. Honestly, I'm always happy to talk to you, and I want to again prompt you to let you talk about where people can find you at,
Sure.
and what's going on.
Well, I'm on Facebook all over the place. Just Google me or search for me. I only friend people if I actually know you or you read my books. And I would like to make sure everybody knows about our fundraisers coming up in September. We're trying to raise $25,000 for recovering from religion and the Secular Therapy Project. So you, by donating to us, you help us help everyone else. And we give all of our services away for free. And we only have one employee for the whole thing, and that's our executive director, Gail Jordan, and we don't pay her crap. So nobody gets paid much.
Oh my God! Don't say that.
Well,
don't say that.
We don't pay her nearly what she's worth. I'll tell you that. We love
Gail Jordan, who's also been on this program.
Yeah.
Wonderful woman. She needs to come back. Honestly, another great potential guest. But yeah, go check all that stuff out.
Yep.
And we are going to be doing a Discord after show. At least you are going to be on the Discord after show, Dr. Ray. So check that out if you want to join the ACD Discord. It is a fan-run Discord server. So there's going to be links to that in the chat and in the description, where you're just going to hang out with some folks for a little bit. So go check that out if you want to keep talking to Dr. Ray. And also, before we go, I have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, stupendous crew that help make this show happen every single week. Look at that crew. Look at Greg's rolling his eyes. Why are you rolling your eyes, Greg? Come on. Look at this guy. He doesn't even listen. We spend time out of the show to thank you, and that's what we get, huh? I get it. I'm annoying to deal with. But they are awesome, and they help make the show happen for real. So thank you guys for all the work that you do. I want to reiterate we want the truth segment here, folks. Joke answers only. The worst part about skepticism is blank. Please put it in the comments below so we can read out your funny answers for next week. We'll pick the top 3. Dr. Ray, before we peace out tonight, you have any words of wisdom? Words of wisdom? I'm trying to bring words of wisdom back. It used to be a thing I say every show, and then I kind of forgot about it, and now I want to bring it back. So any words of wisdom?
Golly, I know. I can't
Okay.
think of any words of wisdom that I haven't
that's
already
it. We're
said
done.
today.
No words.
Have fun, enjoy life. Don't waste your life with ideologies.
There you go. Don't waste your life. Don't waste your life with ideologies from Dr. Daryl Ray. That's it for tonight, folks. I am your host, Objectively Dan. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between the Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.